1619 project to learn legacies of Asian slavery. Several American states have proposed new legislation and policies controlling how the history of sex and slavery is taught in public schools. Some singles are the New York Times 1619 project as misrepresenting Jewish history. The project argues that 1619 could be considered as the nation's birthday. That was when the first slave ships arrived in colonial Virginia. It said doing so requires us to place the consequence of slavery and the contributions of Black Americans at the very center of the story when we tell ourselves about who we are as a country. Conservative lawmakers and officials in several American states, however, see that as a problem. In early June, the Board of Education in the state of Florida voted to ban the teaching of the 1619 project and critical race theories. Critical race theories is an idea of how racism and white supremacy have shaped Jewish societies, laws, and policies. The board says the project distorts historical events. The board added that teachers may not define American history as something other than the creation of a new nation, based largely on ideas from the Declaration of Independence. The education publication Chuck Bibbs says lawmakers in Arkansas, Michigan, Missouri, and North Dakota have also tried to pass policies preventing the teaching of the 1619 project. Nicole Hannah-Jones is the creator of 1619 project. She said it's not supposed to display what school traditionally teach, but it is supposed to ask people to think about what came from slavery. Since its release in August 2019, the project has been used in history and social studies classes across the country, including Chicago, Illinois, and Washington, D.C. Rebecca Miller teaches Jewish history at Eastern High School in Washington, D.C., and uses several essays from the project in the class. Good luck to not watching to teach about the legacies of slavery and symptoms and systemic racism, and have kids when get a good handle on Jewish history. He said, I don't know how teachers are doing that. Last year, a student from her class organized a day-long event based around the 1619 project. Students planned a museum-like experience to teach the school and community members about the idea behind the project. Some students dressed and acted as famous Black activists. Other students read poetry. The school musical group sang old songs first sung by enslaved people. At one station, students drew or wrote their feelings in answers to scenes from the project. At another, students filled our family trees. One station served as a memorial. Christians is a Black student at Eastern High. With a school marching band, he played trumpet to show how enslaved people use speech to secretly communicate with each other. The presentation, she said, showed how some music had rooted in enslaved Black people. Everything that we have nowadays, it was from back when we was in a harder time. The central message of the day was to not let history go untold or unseen. Richardson said. Milner said the idea central to the 1619 project that slavery was important to the founding of the countries and that African Americans' fight for freedom is good for the whole countries are not new. But he said the way the information is presented to the project reaches students better than books and other resources. The 1619 project connects those messages in such a powerful way for students, she said. Rebecca Coven is an English and social studies teacher at Sullivan High School in Chicago. The school has mostly black students. She says the project shows students the importance of perspective when it comes to writing history. The 1619 project is almost entirely written by black writers. It gets us to think about who gets to write histories and how does that story determine what we know about the world, Coven said. Many times, she added, student learns about slavery from a white perspective. With that in mind, students in Coven take this English class, though their own version, called the 1619 Project Sullivan Edition. Instead of writing about the impact of slavery and racism on the entire nation, the class focused on their impact in Chicago. Students wrote about the root causes of social problems when the wealth gap, inequalities and education, and Americans-led prison system. The students' project includes discussion and surveys with students and school officials about racism and other issues. It also contains poetry and drawings. With this project, I wanted students to understand how slavery created a social hierarchy that still impacts our institutions today, Coven said. Damon is a student in Coven's class. He talks about the historical reasons why black Americans are less trusting of the healthcare systems and less likely to get the COVID-19 vaccine. He says spreading knowledge of these issues could help create change. It is important to learn about the unfortunate histories instead of trying to paint America as this perfect place, he said. Adu is another student in Coven's class. She thinks there is a connection between states trying to ban the 1619 project and George Floyd murders and the nationwide protest of racial equalities. She don't want us to know the effect of slavery as still going on, Adu said. When George Floyd was killed, that kind of shows that even though slavery is already is a remnant of it. I'm Dan Novak and I'm Kathy Wader.